Every year since Europeans arrived in North America, farmland has been losing approximately 0.07 inches of topsoil. That number sounds small. It is nearly twice the rate the USDA considers sustainable. At current trajectory, within less than 30 years, scientists estimate that only 5% of US agricultural land will remain unaffected by degradation. The rest will have lost enough topsoil to fundamentally compromise its productive capacity. The loss of topsoil is not reversible on any human timescale. Soil that took centuries to accumulate is gone within a generation of poor farming practice. And the strangest part of this story is what was preventing it before, and what people are now releasing back onto barren ground to try to stop it. Bison, before the 1870s, approximately 60 million bison roamed North America. By 1884, that number was 325. In between those two figures lies one of the most consequential ecological collapses in modern history, and its consequences are still being measured in the degraded soil of the American Great Plains today. If you think large animals and soil health have nothing to do with each other, subscribe and stay here, because the connection is more direct than most people realize. The region stretching from Alaska to the Gulf of Mexico, called the Great Bison Belt, was once a vast grassland ecosystem in which bison were not simply inhabitants, but active participants in maintaining the landscape's health. Their impact on the ground beneath them was physical and constant. Bison scratched trees with their horns, which prevented woody vegetation from spreading into open grassland. Without that behavior, trees encroach on meadows, shading out the low-grass communities that the entire prairie food web depends on. When bison grazed, they moved in large, tight groups consuming grass unevenly, creating a patchwork of short-cropped and taller areas across the landscape. This variation is not cosmetic. Different species of birds, insects, and small mammals require different grass heights. A uniform grass height supports fewer species than a varied one. Bison rolled in dust and mud repeatedly, creating shallow depressions in the ground. By spring, those depressions filled with water and became small wetland areas, microhabitats with their own plant and insect communities. Their fur carried seeds across the landscape. Their carcasses, when they died, delivered large pulses of nitrogen and phosphorus into the soil nutrients that fed plant communities for years around each decomposition site. All of this happened continuously, at the scale of 60 million animals moving across a continent. When they disappeared, the land lost the processes that had maintained it for thousands of years. The decline was not sudden, it was layered, with each phase of human intervention compounding the previous one. When Spanish colonizers brought horses to North America in the 1500s, the immediate impact on bison wasn't obvious. Horses are not predators, but horses spread rapidly among the Plains Indian nations, and mounted hunting transformed what had been a sustainable subsistence practice into something operating at a completely different scale. By the early 1800s, approximately 60,000 Plains Indians had between 300,000 and 900,000 horses. In 1840 alone, an estimated 500,000 bison were killed for food, and another 100,000 for the eastern trade market in a single year. Horses also competed with bison for grazing, reducing the food supply available to the herds. Then came cattle. By 1900, approximately 30 million head of cattle were grazing across the Great Bison Belt, displacing bison from their habitat, competing for grass, and spreading diseases that bison had no immunity against. And then came the deliberate slaughter. Commercial hunters targeting hides and bones reduced the remaining population with a speed that is difficult to fully process. The bison population that had stood at approximately 60 million before the 1870s had fallen to an estimated 325 individuals by 1884. The Great Bison Belt, the grassland system that had sustained both the animals and the soil beneath them for millennia, was now grazed by cattle that interacted with the land very differently. Cattle grazed more uniformly, didn't create the same soil disturbance patterns, didn't carry seeds across the same distances, and didn't generate the same nutrient pulses. The short grasses that bison maintained were gradually replaced by taller, less resilient grass species. By 1926, the southern plains had seen pasture land shrink from 4,600 square miles to approximately 695 square miles. The prairies that had once stretched unbroken across the continent had been reduced by a combination of unmanaged cattle grazing and agricultural conversion. And then the soil that nobody had been protecting blew away. The 1930s Dust Bowl was the visible consequence of what had been happening to the Great Plains soil for decades. With the grass cover that bison had maintained now gone, and farming practices that left soil exposed to wind, the topsoil had nothing holding it in place. Over several years of drought and wind events, an estimated 850 million tons of topsoil was stripped from the southern plains and carried into the Atlantic Ocean. Communities were abandoned. Farms were buried. The ecological and human cost was significant enough to force a national conversation about land management that had been ignored for generations. The connection between bison, their grazing patterns, their soil disturbance, their role in maintaining grass biodiversity, and the health of the land beneath them was understood by ecologists, but had not translated into policy. The Dust Bowl made the argument visible to everyone. What followed was the beginning, slow and fragmented, of efforts to understand what had been lost and whether any of it could be recovered. The most rigorous scientific evidence for what bison actually do to prairie soil and plant life comes from a long-running experiment at the Konza Prairie Biological Station in Kansas, 13 square miles of tallgrass prairie in the Flint Hills region, co-owned by Kansas State University and the Nature Conservancy. About 30 years ago, scientists set up a controlled comparison. One section of the research station was grazed year-round by a herd of 120 bison. Another was grazed seasonally by cattle. A third was left entirely ungrazed, simulating the conditions of land where both bison and cattle had disappeared. That area was periodically burned, replicating the controlled fires that had historically moved across the Great Plains and which ecologists understand to be a natural part of the prairie cycle. Over 3 decades, researchers counted and catalogued every plant species in each zone. The result from the bison grazed section, plant species diversity increased by 86% compared to the ungrazed control areas. The cattle grazed section showed an increase of 30%, a meaningful improvement, but less than half the gain observed with bison. The mechanism is the bison's specific grazing pattern. Unlike cattle, which graze relatively uniformly, bison target certain dominant grass species, heavily reducing their dominance and opening space for native prairie plants that would otherwise be outcompeted. As the dominant species thin, dozens of other native species establish themselves. The landscape's biological diversity rebuilds around the gaps the bison create. The experiment also documented a climate resilience effect. During the severe droughts of 2011 and 2012, plant communities in bison-grazed areas showed greater stability and faster recovery than adjacent ungrazed zones. The diverse root systems produced by species-rich prairie held soil moisture and structure better under drought stress. If this is reframing how you think about what animals do for ecosystems, share this video, because the restoration projects currently running tell the rest of the story. Yellowstone National Park was where the most documented bison recovery began. The park's herd had been reduced to 25 individuals at its lowest point. Through protection, managed breeding, and decades of conservation effort, the Yellowstone herd now numbers approximately 5,900 animals as of 2022, the largest wild bison population in the United States. Near Chicago, the Midwin National Tallgrass Prairie, built on the site of a former US Army munitions factory, has been running a restoration program since 1996. In 2015, bison were introduced to the 9 square mile prairie reserve. The restoration experiment is planned to run until 2035, giving scientists 20 years of comparative data on the bison's effect on a severely degraded industrial site. In Montana, the American Prairie Foundation is running the most ambitious private bison restoration project in the country. The reserve spans more than 526,000 acres as of 2024, with a long-term goal of establishing a continuous wildlife corridor across nearly 3.2 million acres. The project began in 2005 with a few dozen animals. By 2025, the herd numbers between 900 and 1,000 bison, roaming 59,000 acres. In 2023, American Prairie brought in 80 animals from herds in Colorado and Montana to strengthen genetic diversity. In 2024, the first calves from multiple bloodlines were born on the Montana Reserve. Across all conservation programs combined, fewer than 20,000 bison currently live in protected herds in the United States. They occupy less than 1% of their historic range. Returning bison to degraded land and letting them graze freely produces results. The Konza Prairie data is clear on that. But some researchers argue the results could be significantly amplified if the grazing is managed rather than random. Alan Savory, a researcher who has spent decades studying land degradation, developed an approach called holistic planned grazing, an attempt to replicate the natural movement patterns of large animal herds across a landscape, but with deliberate control rather than letting animals wander freely. The principle is that wild bison herds historically moved in large groups that grazed an area intensively and then moved on, not returning to the same ground until it had fully recovered. That cycle, intense grazing, followed by complete rest, is what produced the biological decomposition and nutrient cycling that maintained prairie fertility. Modern livestock grazing typically doesn't replicate that pattern. Animals have access to the same land continuously, which leads to uniform overgrazing that reduces plant diversity rather than increasing it. Holistic planned grazing divides land into sections, rotates animals through them on a calculated schedule, and controls how long each area rests before being grazed again. The practice requires significant planning accounting for seasonal changes, ground nesting birds, drought risk, and snow cover, and its results are debated among researchers. But the underlying question it is trying to answer is worth taking seriously. Today, fewer than 20,000 bison occupy less than 1% of the grassland system they once maintained. The soil that system protected is eroding at nearly twice the sustainable rate. The Dust Bowl proved what happens when that protection is gone. The experiments in Kansas, Montana, Chicago, and Yellowstone are not moving fast. Ecological recovery at continental scale doesn't. But 325 animals became 20,000. The Kansas data showed 86% more plant species where bison graze. The prairie that was written off after the Dust Bowl is showing measurable signs of recovery in places where the animals have returned. The land remembers what the bison do to it. It just needed them to come back.